On February 28, 2026, Operation Epic Fury lit up the pre-dawn sky over Tehran. As U.S. and Israeli forces unleashed a massive wave of coordinated airstrikes against Iran, the world's attention was fixed on the sheer number of explosions lighting up the darkness. The media scrambled to cover the unfolding story as hundreds of targets were reportedly hit across the country in just 2 days. Satellite images showed smoke rising from military bases, industrial facilities, and command centers across Iran. Analysts rushed to interpret the scale and purpose of the attack as governments reacted cautiously. But don't get distracted by the numbers. The outcome of this conflict isn't going to be decided by a sprawling bombing campaign alone. The fate of the Iranian regime, and potentially the balance of power in the Middle East, hinges on the successful takedown of 3 strategic pillars. These pillars represent the very foundation of the regime's power. They are not simply military installations or isolated bases scattered across the country. Each one represents a key capability that allows the Iranian leadership to maintain control, project power, and deter its enemies. Together, they form the sword, the ambition, and the brain of the regime. If those 3 pillars fall, the entire structure supporting the Islamic Republic could begin to collapse. That's why military planners focus their strategy around them, instead of spreading their efforts everywhere. Understanding these targets explains the real logic behind Operation Epic Fury. Before diving into those pillars, it's important to understand the thinking behind the campaign. A full-scale ground invasion of Iran was never realistically on the table for U.S. or Israeli leaders. The risks and costs would have been staggering. Iran is a nation of nearly 90 million people with vast deserts, rugged mountain ranges, and deeply layered defenses. Any invading army would face enormous logistical challenges and a determined resistance. The result could easily become one of the longest and bloodiest wars in modern history. Because of that reality, planners turned toward a targeted campaign instead of occupation. The objective wasn't just to weaken Iran militarily, but to paralyze the regime's ability to function. Remove key capabilities quickly, and the system holding the regime together could begin to break apart. The strategy also aimed to dismantle Iran's ability to threaten its neighbors and coordinate its forces. If the leadership loses the tools it needs to maintain control, internal pressures could grow rapidly. That possibility is central to the gamble behind the operation. President Trump openly acknowledged this gamble in a statement directed toward the Iranian people. He urged them to seize the moment, saying their country will be yours to take, and that it might be their only opportunity for generations. The message suggested that the campaign was designed not just for military impact, but also for political shock. The assumption behind this strategy is that the Islamic Republic may be more fragile than it appears. Beneath the surface, its authority may depend on a few critical systems remaining intact. Remove those supports, and the structure could collapse like a house of cards. The first stage of Operation Epic Fury focused on securing complete air superiority. Aircraft and drones targeted Iranian air defense systems and radar installations across key regions. This cleared the way for deeper strikes on strategic targets. But air superiority by itself does not guarantee victory in a conflict like this. Dominating the skies only creates the opportunity to strike critical systems. What matters most is hitting the right targets at the right moment. That brings us to pillar number 1, the sword. Iran's ballistic missile arsenal has long been the regime's most visible and intimidating weapon. It is the primary tool Tehran uses to threaten its rivals across the region. Before the strikes began, intelligence estimates suggested Iran possessed thousands of ballistic missiles. Many of them were capable of reaching Israel, Saudi Arabia, and U.S. bases across the Middle East. Some longer-range systems were even believed to have the potential to reach parts of Europe. These missiles form the backbone of Iran's deterrent strategy. They allow the regime to threaten retaliation even without deploying large conventional forces. In other words, they give Tehran a powerful sword. Neutralizing that sword required targeting the infrastructure that supports it. The mission fell primarily to U.S.B-2 stealth bombers capable of penetrating heavily defended airspace. Their objective was Iran's network of underground missile facilities. These sites are often referred to as missile cities. They are vast tunnel complexes carved in the mountains and hidden deep underground. Some are believed to lie hundreds of meters below the surface. One of the key targets was the Korimabad complex in Loristan province. Intelligence reports identified it as Iran's largest missile silo facility. Powerful bunker-buster bombs were used in an attempt to destroy the hardened site. The complex reportedly stored a significant portion of Iran's surface-to-surface and cruise missile inventory. Destroying it could dramatically weaken Iran's ability to launch coordinated missile attacks. That made it a priority target from the start. At the same time, strikes hit the missile complex near Tabriz in northwestern Iran. This facility was associated with longer-range missile systems like the Shahab-3 and Sajil. Those systems are capable of traveling thousands of kilometers. Additional strikes targeted production facilities in Isfahan. The city serves as a major industrial hub for Iran's missile program. Disrupting manufacturing that could slow missile production for years. Bases near Kermanshah were also struck during the campaign. Their location makes them ideal for launching attacks toward Israel and the Gulf states. Removing those launch positions reduces Iran's ability to respond quickly. The goal of these strikes wasn't just to destroy missiles already built. Instead, planners wanted to dismantle the entire system that produces and deploys them. Without that infrastructure, the sword becomes far less dangerous. Pillar number 2 focuses on something Iran does not yet fully possess. It represents a capability the regime has pursued for decades. That capability is a nuclear weapon. For Iran's leadership, nuclear weapons would provide the ultimate security guarantee. Possessing them could deter foreign intervention and strengthen the regime's influence across the region. That possibility has long worried both Western governments and neighboring states. Operation Epic Fury aimed to eliminate that possibility entirely. Strikes targeted the most critical facilities involved in Iran's nuclear program. The goal was to push the program back as far as possible. These attacks did not begin from scratch. Earlier strikes in June 2025 had already damaged several key sites. Those operations forced Iran to scramble to rebuild important parts of its nuclear infrastructure. The newest wave of attacks attempted to deliver the final blow. President Trump claimed that the Fordo and Natanz enrichment facilities had been decimated. Both sites play central roles in Iran's uranium enrichment efforts. Fordo is particularly difficult to destroy because it is built deep inside a mountain. Its design was intended specifically to protect it from airstrikes. That made it one of the most challenging targets in the entire campaign. Natanz, Iran's primary enrichment facility, was also heavily targeted. Multiple waves of strikes attempted to damage centrifuge halls and supporting infrastructure, disrupting operations that could slow uranium enrichment significantly. Other nuclear-related facilities were struck as well. The Isfahan nuclear complex, which hosts research and fuel processing operations, was among the targets. Additional reports suggested possible strikes near Tehran and the Parchin research site. The objective was to eliminate not just machines but the network behind them. Laboratories, research centers, and supporting infrastructure were all considered legitimate targets. Removing these elements could cripple the program for years. A nuclear-armed Iran would dramatically change the regional balance of power. Preventing that outcome has been a long-standing strategic priority for Israel and the United States. Operation Epic Fury attempted to enforce that objective through military force. The final pillar may be the most controversial of all. It targets the leadership structure that directs Iran's political and military systems. In other words, the brain of the regime. Even the most powerful weapons require leaders to control them. Orders must be issued, plans must be coordinated, and strategies must be decided. Without leadership, even a large military can become disorganized. That's why the operation included a decapitation strategy. Israeli officials later confirmed strikes against leadership compounds in Tehran. The most significant of these targeted the residence of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Satellite images showed major damage to the compound. Soon afterward, Iranian state media confirmed Khamenei had been killed in the strike. The announcement sent shockwaves throughout the world. Khamenei had ruled Iran for more than 3 decades. As supreme leader, he held ultimate authority over the government and the armed forces. His death creates a massive political vacuum. Additional strikes targeted command and control centers across Tehran. The headquarters of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps was also hit. Naval command facilities were reportedly damaged as well. President Trump simultaneously attempted to divide Iran's military leadership. He issued a direct message to IRGC soldiers, urging them to lay down their arms. The warning stated that continued resistance would lead to certain death. The goal was to create confusion and paralysis within Iran's command structure. Without clear leadership or communication, coordinated responses become difficult. That uncertainty can weaken a regime quickly. With its sword broken, its nuclear ambitions damaged, and its leadership shaken, the regime now faces enormous pressure. However, the conflict is far from finished. The immediate aftermath has already produced retaliation. Iran launched missile strikes against U.S. bases in civilian areas in Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. These attacks signaled that parts of Iran's military remain capable of responding. The risk of escalation remains extremely high. Across the region, governments are preparing for further instability. Hezbollah in Lebanon could potentially open another front against Israel. Meanwhile, the Strait of Hormuz faces renewed uncertainty. Global powers are also watching closely. Russia and China will likely weigh their responses carefully. Regional powers such as Saudi Arabia will also play an important role in shaping what happens next. The United States and Israel have taken a massive strategic gamble. Their plan relies on the belief that removing these 3 pillars will cause the regime to collapse. Whether that calculation proves correct remains to be seen. Ultimately, this conflict will not be judged by the number of bombs dropped. What matters is whether the systems sustaining the Iranian regime can survive. Those systems are the missiles, the nuclear program, and the leadership structure. If those pillars cannot be rebuilt, the Islamic Republic may face a historic turning point. The immediate result is chaos and uncertainty. But the larger question is what kind of future might emerge from that chaos.